fascination in dangerousness, and partly because they're very difficult to spot.
I wanted to see the dark side of humanity. I wanted to understand the most dangerous people in the world. A predator is always aware of the victim or the potential.
Now, let me tell you why these things are so helpful for me. Let me tell you how I used this material to help me in my healing journey, because it's not like you would think. Hey guys. Um, okay, so today we are going to be doing our first ever um reaction video, I guess, or a review. It's not really like a critique or a review or a debate. It's this woman, Carrie McAvoy. Oh, she's not only got the letters behind her name, but she's got the lived experience. And her guests are some pretty incredible people. And just whatever level of consciousness and awareness and the level of healing and her ability to kind of walk in both worlds, the Matrix and the Awakened, is really beautiful. Uh, I think that when we hear lived experiences and real stories paired with the correct and accurate psychology from a trauma-informed lens and a lived experience from a gnosis, right? A lot of people don't like gnosis. That is like the inner knowing, like the body, the felt sense. So really, it's based on what you feel in your body. And if we are disconnected and dysregulated from our bodies, then nobody's winning here. So, when you are able to find yourself in her stories and then see yourself in mine, and I think it's something beautiful when you combine multiple stories. They have completely different angles, but you see how the women connect to each other through that. It helps you draw your own, like, then it's like you're able to see how those two different situations, they drew the same conclusion, and you'll be able to pair it maybe to another different life situation that it kind of resonates. I hope this is making sense. Um, so that's what I'm here for, is to share awareness and to help people grow and heal, because even though we have to use these terms, narcissist, empath, healed, hurt, abuser, a victim, survivor, sometimes we have to use these terms in order to direct you to the appropriate uh like, so you can, so we can communicate. We have to. So just know that I come from a place that I believe hurt people first and foremost. Secondly, boundaries. You have to have boundaries for yourself and keep yourself safe and first foremost. So before, we forgot the boundaries piece. Now that we've added it, we're good. So don't think that I am judging, I am shaming, I am anything here. No, this is me telling my lived experiences to help other people see and recognize that they're not crazy. Because when you have a psychologist, a psychiatrist that experienced something that she didn't have the vocabulary and language for with her experience and knowledge and education, she realized, like, holy fuck, how are my clients like staying sane and regulating their nervous systems when I'm in this and emerged in it every day and familiar with the terminology, and I still can't. So that's why, and again, my gift is curating and finding the best people. And when I say best, I mean people who, for the most part, for me, you can see the work they've done on their nervous systems because they come from a very, very non-biased and healed place, because their ego and wounds are, it comes through sometimes naturally, sure, with me too, but then I'll realize where by being, anyway, my point is, yeah, let's just I tell you what, I'm gonna pause this and go fix me a cup of hot tea, and then I'm gonna put me on a song and I'm just gonna move my body. And so let's meet back here in 10. I will pause this so that way I don't have this big 10-minute gap, the recording anyway. But okay. I forgot to mention this, but I'm going to mention it now because I have to remember that I am still in the early, like, um, I've kind of reached a different level in my healing where I'm taking on more information because I've learned that, if I can channel and transmute my neurotic behaviors and my OCD and my tendency to get attached, if I can channel that into like my advocacy for what's going on in the world today, because it does directly affect me, you, and everyone on this planet, whether we would like to admit it or see it or not. Our nervous systems have just been overloaded. The survivors' nervous systems are overloaded. So just imagine a person who really, honestly, truly, really just think about the people who honestly did think that CSA, well, CSRA, um, would they couldn't handle that truth. Their body could not function. They couldn't handle everyday life if they knew that that was present. Um, and we have to understand that even as, we all have that point of no return to where we realized we were subscribing to something, no matter how big or how little, like I used to say no to all abortion. And then, like, I really thought like a 13-year-old who was, you know, her like I just to me, and I thought that partial birth abortions were going on. I did. I thought that that was real. I thought that I didn't know that that was even illegal. Like it was just misinformation. And it took me having a regulated nervous system enough to be able to educate myself and research those things to come to the conclusion. And, unfortunately, I expose myself to so much of it that it doesn't, I have empathy, but not sympathy. Uh, because I understand lived experiences and I understand, our soul contracts and our birth plan and all that bullshit. But my point is the reason I am doing all of this is to show you that healing is messy and ugly, and you can still be a facilitator and a space holder and still have your cultivated, facilitated space where you are able to collapse. And that's what this is here. This is where I am able to collapse. When I spend too much time in the DOJ files, um, and I just want to like fuck the patriarchy, go protest titties out on the fucking Capitol. Like I have to remember, whoa, go and ground, go do some healing, you know, uh, like I need to remind myself, and me being able to be vulnerable and show you and allow you to come along with me. I feel that like it's going to help some people regulate their nervous systems because my thoughts and head is it's it's a lot up there, but I'm not alone. And had I known there were other people that function like this, I would have gravitated to them to help me, not the people who think this is like a label or a diagnosis or a DSM-5 thing. So, with that being said, things that I am working on presently, it is very important for me to do this strength and fitness training with my personal trainer. Also, I already have a deficiency in calorie intake. So I have to be okay with telling him no. He's a personal trainer, so he's meant to push people. That's his normal baseline. He's never met a 44-year-old who has brain is mush and has like neurological damage from the consistent mental and emotional and psychological abuse that I had just been in, that I literally suffered brain damage and my memory, like I cannot form new, it takes a long time. And so I have to approach it a different, like I can't have like too much information, and I can't like I need this because I'm gonna die if I don't. Like my brain was so bad that like there are still days like sometimes if like that's why I gotta regulate with researching the Epstein things, because I'll forget to eat for 3 days until like I get like I can't walk and I realize, and then by that time, like if you have issues with that, I mean, you got to prime yourself back. I mean, if I went and bought a McDonald's Happy Meal and ate the whole thing, I probably would die because my body's been in starvation mode. It would fuck it all up. But anyway, but I have to learn and grow in relationship. And this is the next phase of my thing. I spent 2 years in isolation healing, a year and a half. I spent a year and a half in isolation and healing, and now it's my turn to get out in society. And it's going to be a lot of trial and error, just like it was. I'm going to make myself look like an idiot and a fool, and express myself to the wrong people here and there, and then sometimes I'll do it in the right, appropriate places. But it's important for me to show you these because awakening and healing, there's no end game. Like, this is going to be no matter what phase of the journey or wherever you're at, you're going to eventually hit a phase where you're having, your life's lessons that you're going to experience in a higher vo vibration. Unless you're not working on yourself, then they're going to keep getting worse. But so learning how to do that. So I have brought a banana. I have to try to get that down. I have made myself some hibiscus strawberry tea. I have my organ stuff, complex, grass-fed organ shit. Working my way. I need to take 6 a day, but I can't. Like I, I would hurt myself consuming the amount of water it would need to get 6 down. And then like I'll put it on, but so for now 2. So I'm gonna get 2 out. So I'm gonna work on getting these 2 down. And I also have a few like sugar wafers. So another thing I have is I got this one hitter. I got a brand new one hitter. Uh, because I lost my no smoke, like, because I'm trying to get off of this. I'm down to 0 nicotine. There's no nicotine in it. It's just and I don't like it. It's fucking disgusting. Like, I'll even smoke a burnt coil because I'm trying to quit, but so this helps me. And I had lost it and I never ordered another one. But when I was in the vape shop, I'm like, oh, let me get this little one hitter. I can just use it, like, not put it, So it helps to grab this instead of the vape. And oh, I did drink 4 ounces. I was able to get all 4 ounces of beef bone broth down. And I drank a half of a Premier Protein chocolate shake. So I've already gotten that down. So during our little time together, 30 minutes already, and we haven't even fucking started. Jesus. A song that kind of resonates with this is Good Things Fall Apart with John Bayou, Elenium. It's on Spotify. Good Things Fall Apart. In parentheses, it has with John, Jonballlion. All right. Okay. Check that out. Now let's get into this.
There's a huge fascination in dangerousness, and partly because they're very difficult to spot.
I wanted to see the dark side of humanity. I wanted to understand the most dangerous people in the world. The biggest thing is that we miss the grooming. Even if you're not privy to the grooming, it's happening. So a predator is always aware of the victim or the potential.
Now, let me tell you why these things are so helpful for me. Let me tell you how I used this material to help me in my healing journey, because it's not like you would think. It wasn't in a typical manner. Okay. So did you hear everything she said? So in this process, like, I was documenting, screenshotting, taking recording, saving everything, because I was like being gaslit so much that like I thought I was the crazy one, because I'm like, okay, I couldn't see any signs of acting because he was either fucking with me, or it was that, like, either I was psycho or he was like psychosis. Like, either one of us weren't nuts, or he was just that evil. So when I hear her, because, and then in my thought, like, I'm like, whenever I was piecing things together, I'm like, you know what? Like he watched me in silence for an hour, like for a month, for a whole month. He listened to me speak almost twice a day, daily for a month in AA and NA circles, sharing my healing story about how getting over the loss of my husband and how he was abusive in this, but I knew he was hurt and he would always be my best friend, but we just couldn't be, So, and he knew like I had my dad was supporting me and I had a house that was paid off and like I didn't have to, and he knew and all the like, so, and I'm like, I wonder if, but then when I see this is a trait of it. Because I was questioning it. Didn't know if he was that evil or that broken. And then I thought I was the psycho one for thinking about these things. But when you see that this is common, it helps regulate my nervous system because it automatically lets me see a fact that the real world subscribes to. And it resonated to an energetic and lived experience that I had and automatically reprogrammed it and just made some connection that made me feel safe in my body. Now, the only place that I messed up was not writing down every time I made an aha moment and a connection like this because I would forget it. And then I would be like, no, no, I'm just crazy, crazy. And then, but no, when you make a big realization that regulates your nervous system like this, that helps you settle and make the story make sense, it's all about making it make sense for yourself. You write this shit down because you need to look at it every day. Because if you tell yourself this every day, it'll take you 30 days for it to make all those new connections and regulate your nervous system. And if not, it might be another 30 days before you see something and be like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, and so far and so forth. And it's until we make that connection that we'll stop having that lesson in this level of consciousness um come up.
Potential victim before it happens, especially in narcissism.
Do you know how to spot a dangerous individual? Could your neighbor be not as safe as you think they are? To answer that question, Dr. Leslie Dobson, the host of the podcast Intentionally.
See, and this is another thing, like depending on where our trauma and our experience is, we've kind of developed a pattern recognition in that thing. Since mine was child SA, like I can point out a child predator like in a second. Like I'll like, oh nope, he's like without a question. I just know. And then sure enough, like I had thought this about somebody, and then like, but it was just like I had been around that person one time, and it just took me, and it was never again. I just kept my distance, and then sure enough, like years and years later, like people were mentioning other things, and it was like, wow, like my radar is so on point. And then like now looking back, realizing how we've been silenced and I was part of the problem. And it's yeah, anyway, like but I mean, then again, what do you do when you're not the parent and you like don't even have custody of your kid and you're fighting sobriety and addiction and codependency and all these things, and everybody has so many different factors that we can't judge anybody.
Disturbing joins me to talk about how to recognize unsafe people. Dr. Leslie Dobson, thank you so much for joining me today. I came across your Instagram and was very intrigued about the topic. I'd love to have you introduce yourself a little bit and how you got interested in the darker side of psychology.
I am going to link all things below that are mentioned.
Yeah, definitely the dark side. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. And so what that means is I did a bachelor's in clinical psychology, but then I did a master's in Freudian psychoanalysis and dream interpretation in London. And then what I learned was that was relatively useless in the world of business. And no one was going to pay me in America. So I came back to Loma Linda University.
So let me give you a little like history of myself too. So It took me 15 years to get my bachelor's degree because I could not pass math, and I didn't know there was a thing like dyslexia for math, dyscalculia, I think it is called. So yeah, so anyway, I managed to rack up 4 minors because, you when you need a remedial or base level math, and you can't take any further. So like sociology, history, psychology, and art history. And then after that, I went on to go to grad school for ABA, Applied Behavior Analyst. And I worked at a school for children on the spectrum. Uh, and then I have a mother and an aunt that are nurse practitioners, and they were like, and I mean, like I said, the women every week, my family would gather and like the women would talk and stuff. So we learned a lot of things. It's almost like kind of like, old traditional days when wisdom was passed down on the rock, bleeding rocks and stuff like that. So I kind of recognize how like and I'm not, this isn't going to be the same thing for everybody because I have always been a person that has looked for signs and synchronicities and like seen how things connected because I know that like whatever I feel and see and hear and nothing ever made sense. So like I had to look for physical, tangible proof in the 3D to keep me grounded. That was the only thing that kept me sane because my brain was so unhinged. Uh, so I do have a lot of experience, like, knowledge. It took me 15 years because of remedial math, but yet I had a 4.0 in grad school, you know.
And I did a master's in clinical psychology where I learned I could focus on forensic psychology. So then I concluded the master's with a lot of experience in forensics and then did my doctorate of psychology. And I wanted to see the dark side of humanity. I wanted to understand the most dangerous people in the world. And
And it's so crazy because like I have always had this fascination too. That and cultures. Like I've always like on the weekends, like when I would go to my grandparents, my grandpa would watch National Geographic and he had a subscription to National Geographic magazine. So I was exposed to other cultures. And I knew from an early age that I was only this religion and political affiliation and subscribe to this patriarchy because of the family and location I was born into. I knew that like if like I knew that like there were other religions and ways of life and ways of living and other cultures that live differently that like are more appealing to me than the way the United States is ran. So that was apparent to me from an early age.
so I did. I started my first practicum, my first clinical experience at the Los Angeles County Jail. And they had never trained any psychology students. And I found a pretty green psychologist who was willing to do this. And so 4 of us came in and he trained us.
Mm.
And it was one of the most wild years of my life. I've never seen insanity to that extent, to the point where I'm talking to someone's auditory hallucinations.
Yeah.
Because I have to talk to the voices in order for the person to come back and talk to me. I have to build.
And this was so eye-opening too because I had a relationship in the past that like this was like a dark triad person and like they were manipulating me so much and like couldn't understand how I was always figuring out their games and like this because they were very good. Because you also have to remember, I was a person that like it made sense. Like I'm not an addict on my own. Like if the person I'm dating is a habitual drinker, it will get out of control for me. I won't know my limits. And if I need a strong person who knows limits because I need that guidance. At least in my past life, that's has been how it is. And like I can remember like there was parts when like because he would even like, oh fuck, like he didn't know if he was going crazy or if like what was happening. But that's when, if you're an empath, like these relationships are soul contracts. These are canon moments. They're mirror relationships. So the things that he was suppressing and hiding and trying to run away from in his life were coming to the surface because of it. And like he was like double guessing his like because he was just always chose lower polarities. He was in that protect yourself, not like, it was always him first. So I had to like when he would get in it was only like 2 or 3 times that he had gotten in that little, I don't whatever mania manic sesh pet blah, 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 episode, let's call it episode. And I would have to like talk to like how his brain was processing the things were come because and those were when he would speak, and I think it was him really trying to want to be better and be a better communicator, and he wanted to do it, he just didn't know how, and he had done so much dirt and wrong, and he wanted to come clean and tell me, but yet he also, I mean, who wants to go back and live on mommy's couch when you're a 35-year-old man? And when you've fallen back into addiction, when you're in addiction, you're not thinking about anybody else. So, and it was just an unfortunate events that spiraled. And it's unfortunate because we both loved each other very, 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 very much. I do believe that. I don't, yeah, it was a mixture of both, but I think like he didn't intend to have like this. But being an empath and living on my Chiron line and seeing our birth charts together and seeing, and plus going in and doing the regression and doing all the ancestral healing between us, this has been our reincarnation thing. So not just him, like I've anyway. So yeah, so that was something that was very, very important that I had to write down and remember to like, oh wow, like what I was feeling and experiencing inside my body and didn't have the words for, what she said gave me the vocabulary and the language that helped me connect it and again solidify it in my body. And that's what embodiment means, and integration.
Build a relationship with the voices. It was just so wild, as well as the psychopaths and the gang members. And it was just so violent. But I was beyond intrigued. And then I did a fellowship in high risk sex offending. And I learned all about all these tests that we have to see if you have a sexual disorder. Like the condom catheter, or there are computer based tests and normative.
See, this was another thing. There were so many fucking golden nuggets. We're probably gonna have to do this in like a bunch of different little sessions, unless you want me to make a big long ass video. But um, so a lot of people from child SA, especially when you detached and you've blocked it out for so long, and excuse me. So I became promiscuous as a teenager, and I was just like, oh, like sleeping with everybody because I just knew that I needed to find a husband. Once I found a husband, then that was it because, he makes the decisions for you. He, guides you, then you have direction and you don't have to like, then you have somebody to follow. So, and then I was like, okay, well, how do? You got to have sex with everybody. So if you're good enough, then they're going to want to keep you. And then, that was my thought like that was what I thought. So anyway, and then I ended up, later on in my adulthood years, I ended up dating this guy who was younger than me. And he was like this sexual stud, literally. Uh and um it opened up this dark underground sex culture that I had no idea existed and was very confusing for me coming from that place and then being the people pleaser and the distorted sexual identity. And this was like, it fucked with me because sex was like the weapon. It was weaponized. I had never been able to be vulnerable enough with a man to climax on oral. And this particular guy had done that. And so it was like, I mean, when you have trauma and you have spent, most of your life unable to feel safe, and you had this man that just worshipped your body, and like I never had a lover that was about my pleasure. I was always the one worrying about pleasing my partner. Like, and for the first time in my life, I had this selfless in the bed beast that was unlocking all these ancestral traumas and wounds, and that makes sense because I am a spiritual person. I am on a spiritual journey. And had I allowed that to be what it was and not expect it to be the end all, he was what unlocked my my heart chakra. Or the no no no, I'm sorry. Uh my root chakra. I had all my upper chakras were already busted wide open. And then this kid came along and then than my root chakra, and then I was able to work on, my solar plexus. And but anyway, so yeah. But so I was always drawn to these dangerous mystique people because I didn't understand that it was something that was desiring to be cultivated and paid attention to and not suppressed and shamed. And because look what happened. I ran away from it. I didn't face it, and I allowed society to make me feel like it was dirty and wrong and shameful and this and that. And look what happened. And it was this that made me realize, no, sex isn't bad. Like, if I meet a person like this, allow it to be what it is. Don't make it more, don't make it less, and just enjoy the experience for what it is as it is. I don't always have to have the end goal of, oh, I need to find a husband. That's the only reason I'm going into this relationship.
Samples and statistics around what age range a child offender prefers, or a minor offender, I should say, because the pictures range from babies all the way to young women. But I got really into assessing their violence and understanding how we can determine if somebody is going to reoffend or be violent. And as I worked on the inside of jails and prisons and state hospitals, I definitely started getting, I wouldn't say PTSD, but I was having more trauma symptoms because it was so scary. There was violence every single day. And when I got pregnant, there was a hit out.
So that's what's going on right now with our country with the release of the Epstein files. See what I'm saying? How she was used to this. This is what she did, and she knew, and being exposed to it to a different degree and a different level than she ever thought possibly imagined. And then she's in the room, so these people have powerful energy, dark motherfucking energy. Have you ever been around somebody where you're like, I don't know, there's something, you know? So so yeah. And that was another thing, is recognizing like, oh, okay, people were just told that energy and quantum physics and woo-woo and all these things were dangerous and bad because they didn't want you to have the knowledge, because then you would be able to see how, like, okay, instead of just calling it anxiety or narcissism, like, I can use it as a tool to help me heal those parts of my personality.
On me in one of the facilities. And that was the last time I went in. A very psychopathic gang member actually told me that there was a hit on me and to get out. And we had built quite a good relationship because, again, it's possible to work well with a psychopath if you know how to work it. So that's when I went into civil.
And that's what I realized, that like I really was attracting a darker type of energy. And it was because of the healer energy in me. Um, I was attracted to those people because I knew, like, I could feel them settle into safety, in the beginning when my nervous system was regulated. And then once it got out of whack and out of balance, and they saw that they can get over on me, like, it just flipped the power roles, and I, and that's where it went wrong. But now knowing that, like, hey, when I go in originally, because that's another thing, is I always took the time to heal in between relationships for the most part, or at least eventually I would, because I'm a person that will go through the limerence and like harp on things and just replay them and go over them. But to see what went wrong and how it could, because I really like, and that was another thing I realized was didn't have a type necessarily, like looks or this or that. I was like, I just knew that some people I like felt this, oh, I like, oh yes, this is it. This is whatever. Like, and then others like, no. And it would now looking back, it's like the safe people who probably did really care about me and but it didn't feel safe in my body because I didn't know I couldn't hold a mature, emotionally available man relationship at that time. And if you think about it, a person who's on the opposite end of that, a narcissist, like they can't have a relationship with a normal person because they would see it in the beginning. So you have to have somebody who has the precursors to be destabilized easily. And then I had just lost over 160 pounds. So I was like, oh my God, I got this younger man. I'm skinny now, motorbike, popping willies, like love with myself, wearing makeup and feeling awesome. And yeah, and then they just,
litigation using all of what I had learned in the state and the government with all their fancy funding uh, to take it into civil litigation and battle out, who's telling the truth in these cases. Did someone rape someone? Are they lying? Because women do lie, right?
Right,
But
right.
a lot of women are telling the truth, and a lot of men are narcissistic and try to break down a woman to the point where no one believes her. So now I battle.
like my abuse was so obvious that like everybody in my all my friends had left my life. The few that I had left, nobody wanted to be around me because I was withering away. I was dying in front of their eyes and they couldn't watch me anymore. And um fuck, where was I going with that?
But a
Right.
lot of women are telling the truth, and a lot of men are narcissistic and try to break down a woman to the point where no one believes her. So,
Oh yeah. So like it was that bad. It was like that like okay, it's either a mental illness or like it's being purposely done. Like it wasn't there was no way, like it just wasn't normal. So I would write everything down because I would double guess myself. I would have to go and make sure in my journal, like, okay, phew. Like, and it got to the point to where it wasn't even about finding out if it was the truth or if it was a lie or catching him or finding out. It was more about maintaining my sanity because I just needed to know that, like, no, I'm not crazy. He is just lying and just wants me to think it. I don't even give a fuck what he's lying about or why or how. My sanity. I needed to be sane.
and just sharing what I've learned in my career with people, and it's gone really well.
Yeah, I think there's a huge fascination in dangerousness, and partly because they're very difficult to spot. Back in the day, before I went into graduate program, I was a director of a runaway shelter, and I often was the lead counselor in the house.
See, and I beg to differ because I would spot out the bad ones, the dangerous ones, like again, going back to my sexual dysfunction, like um or I was in the club from Thursday to Sunday. Yeah, I was drinking, but I wasn't sitting down. Like I was on the dance floor from the time they started, from the time the lights went off till the time they were turning them on for you to get out. And I realized that like, oh, that was me somatically processing energy. My body knew it needed to move. And you know and then like when like how are you going to find this corporate man who has a license and certifications and has to uphold a certain you know look in society, like when I like to like you know in a public place sneaking, not out in front and like being inappropriate or rude, but like I like dangerous risque sex but with my partner, like, and I also like somebody who's unique and like low rider or like jacked up truck with like the speakers and like just I like when a person is not afraid to be themselves and doesn't give a fuck what nobody else thinks.
And at the time, we were getting ready to close the program. And so there was I think it was only one.
So yeah, so I say I would purposely seek out those. But now I know that like I have the discernment and I know like I know who's about what and that I'm reading between the lines and it's a gift and not like the to be anyway. Um now I know like okay, I know what this relationship is about. I know what area this is going to awaken and aliven and expand in me. And I'm not going to put expectations on it because I know that this is, if I want to experience this, this is the experience that I can have it in this kind of way. I know that this one, like a fuck boy can never be husband material. We know that, ladies, but who wants, but anyway, so see that again, like, thank God I found Tantra and all these things because didn't know that I could have a safe and place that I can, give myself the room to explore these things.
One or two adolescents in the residency, and so it was just me and these two kids bopping around there, and one was a 14-year-old boy, and I felt quite safe with him. He and I had a collegial relationship. I never felt any qualms or any threat with him, and he went on to the next setting and raped somebody.
Wow.
Raped an adult, and yet with me I didn't feel any kind of a.
You know what's crazy too is these people can sense things in you. Like my ex-husband, like I can remember like him like one night talking to his drug dealer. Like the drug dealer was like how much time are you gonna give me with this one? Like what's that? And he's like, oh no, 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 not this one. And I'm like, no, I must just be smoking too much weed. I'm over like, no, I'm not hearing this. But like so later on, I'm like, dude, did I really hear that? He's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, why would and he's like, well, that's so what he's doing with my ex-wife. Like, I'm like, so I was married to someone who, yeah. We were in the middle of nowheres. What if he would have like been like, yeah, man, yeah, yeah. Like I would have had no say so. Or what if the dude would have been like, get my husband extra high or slip him something and to where he was incapacitated and couldn't protect me. Like there's a reason that some of us make it through situations like this because a lot of dark people are drawn to our light and our energy, but like it also keeps us safe a lot of the times too. So many times, like I had gotten sick and had to go home, and then the friend ended up getting raped or, something like that more than one time.
Alarm. And so I think that's what freaks us out. It's really scary to think that it could be your neighbor.
Yeah.
And you might not know. I know that Ted Bundy, for example, was married and she didn't know. So what is it that we miss about dangerous personalities that leads us into either complacency or excessive fear?
Miss the grooming. Even if you're not privy to the grooming, it's happening. So a predator is always aware of the victim or the potential victim before it happens, right? It's especially in narcissism, it's very rare that these are impulsive acts of violence. There are always predictors. So they're watching you. They're looking for your vulnerabilities. And
that is so, 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 so true because um the relationship that like did the number on my brain, that person, like I saw them like following me before we had even like started speaking in public. And I had to remember, oh, no, no, it was when we had started like, no, I mean, talking and kind of meeting up and like, I caught him a few times, like, after I'd get off of work, I'd go pick up my son. No, 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 after my son got off of school, I would go pick him up and, at a friend's house who was watching him. And he would be watching me to make sure that I was going there to pick him up and because he would meet me at my house later. And like that happened a few times. And I was like, oh, he just wants to make sure that I'm trustworthy because you have to remember this. He had already told me, he's like, every single girlfriend he has ever had has always cheated on him. Every girlfriend has always cheated on him. And then that's how he watched the women in his life behave, he saw like how the men I saw in my life behave, that's how the women were in his, and he didn't have the male at all. So, um, I was like, oh, yeah, I just want to hug her sometimes. Mm. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna stop this one right here. We're only 6 minutes into this video, and we've already done an hour and 6 minutes of uh material. So that's what we'll do. I'm gonna stop this one right here, and we will finish the rest of it on another video.